It's not Nefiri, please stop saying it's Nefiri, it's not her, please. What's up everyone, I'm Twisted. Today I'll be going through the new season cinematic and try to explain it as best as I can. The new cinematic begins with a speech from LeBlanc about Noxus, that's her eye right here. The cinematic will flow between 4 different settings, with this white room being the first one. Whatever this place is, it's full of magic ink that LeBlanc controls. The magic manifests in the form of these Noxian characters. The first proper thing we see is her hand. Notice how her fingers are covered in darkness. This is the complete opposite from what we saw in Arcane. There, her whole body was in shadow except her fingers. With her hands, she manifests this beast. This represents Mel, or is at least tied to her in some way. In its forehead, we can see the crest of House Medarda. From this shot, we transition to Mel in the same spot on screen as the beast, confirming the connection. The transition also happens after LeBlanc says this:
to answer one simple question. Are you strong enough?
The question being likely directed at Mel, but it can also apply to the other champions present, such as Darius and Katarina. Mel here is on the same shore Ambessa was in Blood, Sweat and Tears. If you remember, Ambessa was pregnant in that music video, and in her bio, not only do we get the confirmation that the baby was Mel, but we also know that the battle took place in Rockrun, which is the ancestral home of the Medarda. So this right here is quite literally Mel returning home. This is also her arrival in Noxian territory following the ending of Arcane, which ties to the title of the cinematic, Welcome to Noxus. If you've seen my video about a potential Noxian show, then you already know that I believe Arcane takes place after Swain rose to power. Keep this in mind for later. In this cinematic, Mel is not wearing the same makeup from the final scene of the show, but she is wearing the same outfit, just with a smaller scarf. Then we see this symbol forming right as we transition into Katarina, which makes me believe this represents her. Notice the ponytail and the daggers. We now arrive at the third setting, which is the manor of House Kythera. This is where the Silken Dance is taking place. I've made a video about the Silken Dance and all the new skins, but the short version is that this is a dance organized by the Black Rose, for reasons we don't really know, and Swain, allegedly, took this opportunity to send Katarina there to assassinate a target. And this figure we're following is indeed Katarina, as we can see her green eyes and red hair. Then LeBlanc conjures this symbol. This can also be found in the new Summoner's Rift map on some of the banners. Like the two previous symbols, this one transitions into a character, this time Darius. Maybe this is the symbol of the hand of Noxus? I'm not sure. Here we can see these Noxian soldiers, their design being very similar to what we saw in Arcane, though there are some differences, most notably the masks, weapons and shoulder pads. We then see Trundle and other trolls, confirming that this takes place on the borders between Freljord and Noxus. Then we get a good look at Darius. As confirmed on Reddit, this is indeed a younger Darius, which means that this likely takes place during the Noxian Freljordian campaigns from when Darkwill was still the Grand General, which means that these stories aren't all happening at the same time. And no, I don't really think this is hinting at a larger story taking place in Freljord. I think this is just showing us what Noxus does, which is invade all regions. We can spot the same symbol again on the banners behind Darius. Here we can see Bone Shiver, Trundle's True Eyes Club, confirming this is indeed him. We can spot something on his head, likely his crown, as he's the self-titled King of Trolls. We then return to Mel as she arrives at this construct. This gateway is likely a Noxtora, which are structures built by Noxians on the roads of areas they conquered. This one though is unique because it's full of ancient carvings. The ones in the back seem random, but in the front the camera focuses on these, where we can clearly see a rose, referencing the Black Rose, as well as people holding spears. We then return to LeBlanc's eye as it transitions to the manor of House Kythera. The perspective makes the dance hall look like an eye as well, hinting that LeBlanc is watching it. The floor itself also has crests of the Black Rose we've seen before. People here are dancing in duos and trios with no dancer standing out. Katarina then arrives, looking at her target. In the background we can already spot Elise's mask as she waits for Katarina. The latter tries to blend in, dancing with the other guests. The shot focuses on this particular mask, though I don't think there's anything special about it besides the unique design, but this could be a member of the Rose spotting Katarina. The spinning movement of the dance makes it seem like the members are turning to Katarina, as she herself is turning her back to them. Good time to say that I haven't been able to spot anything interesting about the masks, so if you do, please let me know. I can say that the masks found in the new map are indeed based on some of these, but that's about it. As Katarina goes in for her target, we can see that the dude isn't too bothered. Maybe he didn't notice, but as we'll see, his posture won't change much. It's almost like he was expecting it. Here we can see masks above him. The one on the left seems to be missing some parts. Elise slices Katarina's mask using one of her spider legs. The cut breaks the mask in half, revealing Katarina's scar left by Talon. She also loses the robe here, exposing her red hair. A nice detail is that we can see Katarina stop as the leg approaches her, meaning this wasn't Elise missing, this was Katarina reacting in time. Katarina's symbol is then surrounded by this one, obviously representing Elise and how this might have been a trap for her. In fact, the whole dance might have been a setup to lure Katarina. That would be interesting. Then we see these masks again. This time the one on the left looks like it did in the previous shot, but it also has the pieces from the first time we saw it. Here Elise is revealing herself, but again, notice how the guy doesn't seem to care. Elise approaches slowly and Katarina gets ready. Elise then stands up and her extra legs wrap around her. She then shoots, this from the holes in her mask, likely her cue in League if I had to guess. A cool detail here is that she has multiple corneas in her eyes, 4 in each, obviously referencing the eyes of a spider. We then return to Darius as he fights Trundle. Here he tries to break Bone Shiver, but the true ice magic spreads to the axe, freezing it. We can also see the pain it causes. True ice is extremely cold, it hurts even the Iceborne, which are the only ones capable of wielding it. Darius then decides to fight unarmed, this part being the one that makes the least amount of sense, because in reality Trundle should be like twice the size of Darius. There's no way a younger Darius could ever take Trundle like this, but hey, I'm not here to power scale, I'm just disappointed that they made Trundle so small and weak, so that Darius could beat him. Trundle takes off Darius's armor, perhaps a reference to how in League his ultimate reduces armor and magic resist. We then get a bit of an awkward fight between the two, which leads to Trundle trying to rip Darius's head from his body. Thankfully for him, he manages to grab his axe. True magic still on it, we can see it moving through his body. He then strikes Trundle with it, knocking him to the ground and shattering the axe. In the Summoner's Rift we can find the broken axe on the top alcove. We then return to Mel as she looks through the carvings. From right to left we see someone holding a weapon, likely a spear. We then see someone commanding Drakehounds. This reminds me of the card Arl the Tracker from Legends of Runeterra. I can't tell what the third one is. The fourth seems to be some kind of masked figure. On the other side we see a lot. I'm not sure of what, but a lot. Alright, let's start with the easy part. These are clearly soldiers. Their helmets seem to match the ones seen in this cinematic, as opposed to the ones from Arcane and Blood, Sweat and Tears. Notice the forehead. Between them are carvings of probably some kind of story, as we can see various humanoid figures. This looks like a tree, but I'm not sure if it's something painted or just rust or damage or something. And on the right, nothing really stands out besides this person right here. Then we get even more carvings. I am not sure what most of them represent. Let's look at them from left to right. Here it's hard to understand what we are looking at, but what we can see are these diamond shapes. These will appear multiple times. For example, in the next slot we can see someone holding this diamond, which means that this likely represents some kind of artifact or power, something that can be held or wielded. I'll talk about this one in a second, but first, above it we can see someone who seems to be holding a bow or a staff. On the right we can spot two more humanoid figures, but it's hard to tell what they are doing. I can kinda see this one on a boat and the one below holding a cube, but grain of salt, it's really hard to see. Going back to this one in the middle, we can see this shape standing out. Now, what this is, I don't know. It could be the Triferic symbol, could be a ram, could even be the stag from the Summoner's Rift, though it might just be the same symbol we saw on the Noxian banners. However, when Mel approaches it, we can see what seem to be nostrils and an eye, so this might indeed be some kind of animal or beast, though it does not resemble the beast we saw earlier. Here we can also spot more diamonds, both above the figure and on its shield. On the new map we can spot some very similar carvings. In my video about it, I mentioned how these could be representing the fountains and Nexus, but now that they are also in the cinematic, maybe this doesn't make as much sense anymore. Though the cinematic is promoting the new League of Legends season, so who knows. Now, what the hell is all of this? Well, I don't know, but these carvings do remind me of the ones we saw in Rise's cinematic. There, it was obvious that the carvings were about the world runes, or at least about a specific shard. It's possible that these are also about the world runes, but it's too early to say for sure. One thing worth mentioning is that not only are the rune words mentioned in Arcane by LeBlanc when speaking to Mel, but the visions LeBlanc shows of a calamity are very similar to the flashback rise as of the calamity that destroyed Com is home. And guess where Com was located? In Noxus. But hey, that's just a theory. Regardless, Mel taps into her power, which we don't fully understand yet. What we know is that besides manifesting golden magic, she has the ability to see someone's inner self, including through illusions, and she's also able to bend their magic against them. Here, either her magic reacts to the carvings, or she's tapping into it herself, giving her a vision of some kind. Or this is some kind of Black Rose spell, it's hard to say. Mel stands right in front of the sun, eclipsing it, which transitions into the vision where the sky is now dark. The first thing she sees is the Immortal Bastion, Mordekaiser's old fortress and the most important structure in modern Noxus. We then jump to Katarina and Elise as they fight. Funny enough, this will be basically like a dance, except now the two of them stand out as opposed to before where everyone was meant to fit in. Even if not intentional, the previous dance does fit the Noxian cruel ideals of no individuality, while this dance is very in line with the Katarina we know from the lore who likes to show off. Elise dodges the dagger and sends her spiderlings after Katarina. We can spot the target still in the background despite everyone else having left already. Here we are going to see a lot of references to Katarina's abilities in League. For example, first she throws a dagger to the air. It's hard to see, but we can tell she did it because it leaves her hand. She then spins as she slices the spiders. One of them loses a leg instead of dying. As it jumps, Katarina throws 3 small daggers at it, placing her hand in the perfect spot to catch the falling dagger. The spider ends up pinned next to the target and he starts to get nervous. He begins to leave and Katarina immediately takes notice. She leaves the dagger pinned to the ground and then lunges at Elise, switching places with her. As the camera moves behind this object, notice this wasn't a small time skip. Elise is still in the same pose. Katarina used her powers to teleport to the dagger she left on the ground. This means that she already has the powers she acquired during her comic. This also makes sense if Swain was indeed the one who sent her to kill the target, as she only begins working for him at the end of the comic. Side note, but if I'm right about when Arcane takes place, then all of these scenes are taking place in different points in time. Darius' fight takes place way before Swain killed Darkwill, Mel's arrival should be shortly after Swain's coup, and Katarina's should be around a year after Swain killed Darkwill. Though, grain of salt, this is mostly just speculation on my part, as we don't know how much of the timeline will remain canon. Katarina spins on the dagger, dodging Elise's cocoon. Here we get a bunch of 2D webs and Katarina flows and cuts through them, finishing with a strike that kills her target. It's subtle, but we can see the gold pieces he had on his necklace flying out, implying Katarina's dagger cut through it. The pieces remain as we transition to Mel's vision. As the figure approaches her, we can see that she is not wearing her scarf nor her armor. Looking at these people, they seem to be using some kind of blood magic, and they also look pale, though that might just be the lighting of the scene. However, this does match the appearance of the soldiers of the Grey Legion. The Grey Legion being an army which includes undead soldiers, led by Lady Noradi, who, as you can tell by her outfit, works for the Black Rose. Now, why is Mel having visions of herself fighting undead soldiers and emomancers? That I'm not sure, but perhaps this represents the Rose seeing her as an enemy after the events of Arcane. Speaking of which, here we can see Mel doing what she did in the show, grabbing onto someone else's magic and repelling it. Then pillars fall from the sky as she walks toward the Immortal Bastion, very likely representing the journey she has ahead of herself. Then this huge face falls onto her. We return to Katarina and Elise. Elise slowly backs away as Katarina stays still, her target dead in front of her. We get this quick transition to Elise's new perspective as she transforms into her spider form. Katarina smiles, perhaps because she managed to kill her target or because the challenge just increased. Maybe both. We then get a look at Elise's spider form and oh boy, it's huge. Like, Elise gets to be this big but Trundle is now smaller? Come on. Speaking of Trundle, we then see the aftermath of his battle with Darius. The latter has his hand frozen. The trolls begin to leave and we even see 2 of them carrying Trundle. We go back to Mel as she blasts the head away. Notice how the light makes it seem like the head now has golden eyes and marks like LeBlanc. Maybe this is supposed to be her face, or maybe this is just representing the fact that this is indeed Mel fighting the Black Rose. Either way, the head hits the doors and Mel's path is wide open. She then snaps back as she looks to the horizon where she can see the Immortal Bastion. If you notice, the wind is blowing in its direction. We can see it in the fields and also in the particles here. It's almost as if the capital is calling out to Mel. And then we return to the White Room one last time. It starts with the black magic swirling and some voices in the background, before the big reveal, LeBlanc's new look. This is far from any we've seen before. She now has black and gold lipstick, black sclera, longer hair, hair, now black, and obviously a brand new outfit. Then Vladimir arrives, he too has a completely new design, different from his most recent one, and we get a better look at his white room. In the walls we can see the black magic, forming not only the Noxian characters but also other drawings. For example, here we get a better look at the beast that represents Mel. I assume this is some kind of wolf, I think that would fit her the best, but it doesn't really look much like it, does it? To its right we can spot a raven, I think it's obvious what this represents, and in the corner we can see what I believe is Trundle. Notice his chest, the pig, and the armor on his belly. Now this leads me to believe that LeBlanc is looking at events that happened or are happening, which explains this whole cinematic really. But interestingly enough, we have not seen this beast right here. Yes, it represents Mel, or is at least tied to her somehow, but I'm curious to see what else this means for Mel and her family, in specific her real father. Could this beast be some kind of god, for example? Vladimir says,
"Every new path seems to lead us closer to chaos."
Likely referencing all the plans of the Black Rose that failed, and perhaps also referring to Katarina assassinating her target and Darius surviving the trolls, two things that maybe the Rose wasn't counting on. He then says,
"Perhaps we should focus on the opportunity that's washed up on our shores."
As he looks at the beast, and well, Mel did just wash up on their shores, so he's obviously talking about her. Though this does mean that this scene is taking place not too long after she arrived, but LeBlanc was also looking at Katarina's fight with Elise, so perhaps the ending of Arcane takes place a bit closer to present times than I was initially anticipating. The duo talk about calamities, even mentioning what happened in Piltover. They then talk about an upcoming calamity as this symbol begins forming on the wall. Now, what the hell is this? Well, I don't really know, but here's everything we know so far. It's either a major calamity on the levels of the Rune Wars and or Victor, or something that they can use to prevent a calamity, some kind of weapon or artifact. Looking at the symbol, two things stand out. First, it does look like some kind of dagger or sword. Second, it seems to have an eye. However, these elements could be something else. It's too early to really know for sure. Now, I know everyone is saying that it must be a Darkin or related to the Darkin, but well, I wouldn't be so sure. That seems too random here. Too disconnected from everything else. Even assuming that this is an eye imagery is present in so many places, the Watchers, demons, and yes, the Darkin, but even then it's like only two Darkin, Nefiri and Rust. It being a Darkin would explain why Vladimir seems nervous. He was once a slave of them after all, but if I have to be honest, I don't think it's related to the Darkin at all. So here are my 5 quick theories. 1. We don't know what this is yet, as in this is something completely brand new. The Arcane was something brand new, maybe this is as well. 2nd, this is related to Mordekaiser. We know this story will continue in the 2nd act of the season, and we know that Mordekaiser is getting a new skin. Maybe this is tied to him somehow. Maybe this represents his kingdom. 3rd, this is tied to demons, be it in general or a specific one like Atakan. Now, this to me makes way more sense than Darkin. The Black Rose already deals with demons, and one of them, Atakan, is even joining the Rift and will have a comic soon as well. Though I don't see Atakan as a calamity on the level of Victor, so maybe this is a brand new demon. Also, if this is indeed an eye, this part right here kinda resembles the eyes of Rome. But if we are talking about demons and calamities, then the 10 primordial demons is what comes to mind. 4th, it looks like Riven's sword. I don't really have anything to add, it just kinda looks like her sword. And the sword did come from the Black Rose, so who knows, maybe the sword is some kind of key, I don't know. 5th, it's just a void, the Watchers. Nothing much to say here, they are the calamity after all. 6th and final theory, it's a world rune. I already talked about world runes and rune wars in this video, so hey, maybe this one isn't that far-fetched of a theory. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what you think the symbol represents, but please don't say Nefiri. It's not Nefiri, I promise. If I missed anything, let me know down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and you can always change your mind later. With this being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.